wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. I'm Dan Hayes, and I'll be your host today. I am a podcaster, and I co-run the Milwaukee Stoic Fellowship with Dr. Greg Sadler. And today we're discussing the Stoic conception of friendship. Are friends needed for a eudaimonic life, or a fulfilling life, if you want to phrase it differently? And the answer is no, but they are definitely preferred in difference. These are things that will not be good in and of themselves, but how we use them. And I don't want to say like friends are used, but in a similar concept to money is good if you go out and you try to benefit your other fellow man, to give to charity, to build things that will benefit others, but it can also be used for evil means. And so an example would be you have a grudge against someone and you decide to buy their house and kick them out of it. That's using money for rather vicious means. But other schools have said that the supreme good is a soul which is insensible to feeling. Or, better defined, as Seneca would put it to make it work a little bit more for the Stoic idea, a soul entirely beyond the realm of suffering. This is from Letters from a Stoic 9. The Stoic Path is how to live in the world and not retreat from it, and still be undisturbed. And we understand that we have this need to be with community, and can't just remove ourselves like the Epicureans, who are our walled garden, away from all of the vicissitudes of the world outside. And so, a quote here: "There is this difference between ourselves and the other school. Our ideal wise man feels his troubles, but overcomes them. Their wise man does not even feel them. But we and they alike hold this idea, that the wise man is self-sufficient. Nevertheless, he desires friends, neighbors, and associates, no matter how much he is sufficient unto himself. Considering that we are social beings living in a society together, it is our social duty to work together in harmony and feel concern for all mankind. Or as Marcus puts it, fellowship is the purpose behind our creation." And so we're seeing here, both from Marcus and Seneca, that even though we can be sufficient and happy or eudaimonic, fulfilled in our lives, without these things are actually goods, not in and of themselves, but things that definitely increase the fullness of our lives. And so back to Seneca, "But the fact is, the same thing is advantageous for me, which is advantageous for you. For I am not your friend, unless whatever is at issue concerning you is my concern also. Friendship produces between us a partnership in all our interests. There is no such thing as good or bad fortune for the individual. We live in common, and no one can live happy who has regarded to himself alone and transformed everything into a question of his own utility. You must live for your neighbor if you would live for yourself." And so once again, we can be these little individual units, but that's not like a full life. You can be happy, but there's so much more to life than just your pure baseline happiness. And so we see once again Seneca is like really bringing in this idea of cosmopolitanism, of wish for the benefit of your fellow man. So we've kind of determined that we would like to have friends, even though it's not specifically necessary for a eudaimonic life, and that they are not good in and of themselves. But how do we determine a true friend? And so friend, especially in our time of Facebook and all the niceties that we have in the world, friend has become this overloaded term, and it's like it could be anything from your best bosom buddy to that guy that you met once at a conference 3 years ago, and I'll be your friend on Facebook. Yeah, it's okay, but making this term so wide kind of robs it from the explosion of ideas that could be if you narrowed it to a very specific set of criteria. And so this is what the Stoics, and specifically in Seneca, is talking about when he talks about what a true friend. It is not an acquaintance or a workmate or just a classmate. And it might not even be everyone in your family. And in the ancient times, a lot of the Stoics would call each other brother, maybe to help try to differentiate this. But Seneca describes it thusly. Indeed, I would have you discuss everything with a friend, but first of all, discuss the man himself. When friendship is settled, you must trust first. Before friendship is formed, you must pass judgment. Ponder for a long time whether you shall admit a given person to your friendship. But when you have decided to admit him, welcome him with all your heart and soul. Speak as boldly with him as with yourself. That's letter 3. It takes a lot of time to make a really good and true friend. If you are going around and just bearing your soul to anyone that comes around you, probably some people are going to think you're kind of weird, but also people could potentially that are not virtuous take advantage of these things of you giving out way too much information. So there is a time that you should observe and judge these people, how they act with you as well as act with other people. See how, if their actions portray them as a virtuous person, or at least a mostly virtuous person, because no one's going to be perfect. And also, don't let them just pick you just because someone comes up and says, "Hey, I'm going to be your best friend." It's great, but it has to be a two-way street, and you should be discerning. We are naturally social creatures, and we have desires to be with others, but anyone won't just do. Don't settle for the first one that comes around. You got to seek out those who will improve you to be good friends, and you need good friends to really improve you, because holding your own counsel is often the blind leading the blind. As in, you don't know what you don't know, and it takes an outside observer to sometimes bring you to that realization that you need to be at. But what are not friends? What are those things that pretend to be friends? These are fair-weathered friends. These are only friends due to convenience. People that, if you happen to hold a position, you're a boss at a company or something, and people come up and they kind of kiss up and are very nice, and they throw you compliments. But these are people that are only there until you can't give them anything. And then once you've lost that thing which they desire from you, then they're gone. They don't actually care for you as an individual. They only care for you as a means in which to give them some other thing. And this reminds me of Kant's one of the formulations of the categorical imperative, in that every person should be an end in and of themselves, and never merely a means to an end. But I digress. Other things that are not friends are friends of convenience. These are just the people that are kind of around. These are the friends that you have in maybe elementary or high school. These people that just because you happen to all be the same age and you happen to all be in the same place, you just kind of hang out. But it is just. Or at work, they're you're friendly with them, you're at least nice and interact with them, and you have overall a good rapport with them. But these are not anything that's particularly deep. And then here's a kind of a controversial thought: is a lover as a friend? Are all lovers friends? The Stoics and Seneca would say that all friends love each other, but not all lovers are friends, because it is kind of this idea of what you are attracted to. And so the lover is oftentimes attracted by the other's beauty or the physical sensations that the other can provide, but not care for the other in and of themselves. There is a lack of rational connection of the mind of the other. And so you can go back to Plato's Symposium, and then where they talk about like love, and they kind of like elevate this friendship to this point that is significantly higher than that of just a lover, because there's no ulterior motives. There's no like, oh, I'm going to, have some fun times with this person. It's just like all at the rational level. But we can try to figure out how and who are friends or not. And so here's a good test of a friend is poverty. And so oftentimes, or poverty both in wealth as well as in position, as well as in beauty, all these things that pretend to be the source of friendship, but they are all things that are rather ephemeral, that will not outlive the person themselves. So here's the test from Seneca. Poverty will keep you and your true and tried friends. You will be rid of the men who were not seeking you for yourself, but for something which you have. It is not true, however, that you should love poverty, if only for the single reason that you show that you those by whom you are loved. Or, when will that time come when no one shall tell lies or compliment you? This is really this lovely point where this compliments that are not actually for you, but in order to get something from you. He continues on later in the letters, and it's like, how closely flattery resembles friendship. It not only apes friendship, but outdoes it, passing it in the race with wide open and indulgent eyes. It is welcome and sinks to the depths of the heart, and it is pleasing precisely wherein it does harm. Show me how I will be able to see through this resemblance. Any enemy comes to me full of compliments in the guise of a friend. Vices creep into our hearts under the name of virtues. For example, rashness lurks beneath the appearance of bravery. And so this is Seneca talking about how one thing is disguised as the other. And we talked about these fair-weathered friends and these friends of convenience, that these are people that pretend to be your friend but are not actually your friend. Their main concern is not with you in and of yourself, but in the things around you. And so they dress themselves in the trappings of friendship in order to get these things, because friendship is such a powerful thing to have and to hold on to, that it can be used for these nefarious ends. In fact, people who run scams are often called confidence men. And this is because confidence is one of the cores of a real, true friend. And once you are given in to someone's confidence, you are giving them a potentially large amount of power over you. And so in order to make sure that you are not taken in, you need to really well assess all the people that you will let that close to yourself. But you should never go to the point where, like, I will have no friends and I will have no people that I have a confidence in, because that is a very sad and lonely life. What are your duties to a friend, you might ask? And, really it's, truthfulness, loyalty, confidence, and being as honest as you possibly can with these people. Seneca describes confidence thus: since certain matters occur which convention keep secrets, you should share with friends at least all of your worries and reflections. Regard him as loyal, and you will make him loyal. Some, for example, fearing to be deceived, have taught men to deceive. By their suspicions, they have given their friend the right to do wrong. Why need I keep back any word in the presence of my friend? Why should I not regard myself as alone when in his company? This is letter 3. Thus, to do a virtuous action, one needs to be truthful and loyal at the same time. We cannot control the reactions of our friends, but we can act in a way that is just and not intentionally inflict harm on a friend. With this in mind, we can do our part to facilitate harmony in the actions we control, even though we can't control the outcome. And this is really just the basis of what it is to be a really true and loyal friend. And when I said that you need to be truthful and loyal to be virtuous, this is in regards to being a good friend. This is kind of like you have your virtue overarching everything, but then underneath you have what it is to be a good friend or a father or a policeman or a firefighter, or what. There's all these ideas of what like the ideal of this, and the ideal of a friend is to be truthful, loyal, confident, honest with these people, to not let back and have that open dialogue, knowing that even when you are criticizing your friend, that they know that it is from a point of love and not from trying to actually break them or berate them or beat them down. And it's all this like constructive criticism taken as just pure love for the other, that you are willing to say, hey, man, like, just, you need to do this, or this is not working for you. And sometimes that's hard, but if you actually have these really strong friendships, the friendship can definitely outlast a moment of feeling uneasy about hard subjects that need to be broached. But concerning keeping the confidence of your friend, this is really hard, because there's one thing to be like a really good sounding board, but there is also, if you are going to keep the confidence, then you need to make sure that you are not going around and spreading the affairs of your friends around willy-nilly to all those around us. And this is sometimes really hard. There's definitely a want to kind of gossip, but it's probably something that you should refrain from, and especially in regards to your friends. And in order to maintain a friend, that means to be loyal to them and not share secrets that are not yours to share. And so we should always endeavor to be truthful. And so sometimes people will come to you and like ask you, is like, oh, is this person this or that, or have they done this? And Marcus Aurelius says, to lie deliberately is to blaspheme. The liar commits deceit and thus injustice. Dishonesty is not a virtue, but if you pick and choose those things that you will divulge about other people to other people, then every time you say, like, I don't know, or I can't say, or I won't say, may give up the thing that they're asking about. And so what you really need to say is, I cannot say, in all regards, talking about them. If you always say, I cannot say, when anyone asks about your friend, they know that there's no way to use that to get other information. There's no meta information about that. And so you need to act consistently regarding the affairs of your friends and their confidants, thus saying, I cannot divulge these things. Whatever it is, it could be the most innocuous thing to the most earth-shattering thing. Just say, I cannot say. That is how you maintain a good friendship in regard to gossip. Then one might be asking the question, why should one be so discerning about a friend in the first place? The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. This is from Epictetus. And it's really kind of this idea of like all those that your friends and those people that you keep closest to, they influence you in doing the things that they like. If you go and you have a friend group and their thing that they do every time is to go and drink, then you are more likely to go and drink with them. And if that is something that you are trying to avoid, then hey, go for it. Go and don't do that with them. And so it's easy to fall into these, vicious acts when there is this social pressure around you. And it can be really high, and it can be really engaging and like a siren song. But if you are being intentional about the people and the actions that you do with people, then you can avoid these negative pitfalls before they arise. And this helps you to act more virtuous. The whole idea of like, I don't want to snack, and so I don't keep snacks in the house. Therefore, one should really endeavor to pick for yourself those who have the best virtue to be closest to you, if that is the goal that you are reaching for. If you are on the Stoic path and you're looking for virtue as your goalpost, then cultivate people that are more virtuous than the general and move forward from that. And if you create and cultivate this group that is virtuous, then you can push yourselves to be even better in all regards. So now we know kind of like who we want to be our friends and why it's good to have friends and what are the benefits of having these friends. But like, where are you going to find a friend? And especially if your criteria is the virtue of these people, and you're going to go to like the friend store? No. But you don't have to look in any particular location, because virtue is not a gift given to any one group, class, or caste. It is there for all rational creatures to cultivate. And it really is out there. And so as Seneca is talking to Lucilius, he says, "You need not, my dear Lucilius, hunt for friends only in the forum or in the Senate house. If you are careful and attentive, you will find them at home as well. Often good material often stands idle for want of an artist. Make the experiment, and you will find it too. As he is a fool who, when purchasing a horse, does not consider the animal's points, but merely his saddle and bridle, so he is doubly a fool whose values a man for his clothes or from his rank, which is indeed is only a robe that clothes us." And so here, Seneca is talking, and it's like, okay, Lucilius, you're like an upstart politician, and you're in the forum and in the Senate house, and you're talking to these people, and you think that like maybe this is the group in which I need to find my friends from. And he says you can also find them in your house. And he right here he's referencing the slaves that a high-powered Roman usually has at their house, and he's saying like your friends can be anywhere from the highest levels of power to the lowest level as a slave, and it's not anything that is removed from either of these people in the way of virtue. That virtue permeates us all regardless of our station in the world, and so you should not remove from your possibility of friends just because of one's wealth or one's position. As you read through like the letters from a Stoic by Seneca to Lucilius, his, I don't know if you want to call him his protege, at least the person he's taking under his wing. At first, it's very kind of like back and forth, almost like a student and teacher, but you definitely see as the letters go forth, the closeness of this relationship as it increases. And so we have all these examples of like what are the criteria for a friend. And now here is a passage from letter 55 that really kind of shows you what a Stoic friend means to a Stoic, to see their words of a friend to a friend. So Seneca writes, "Indeed, as often as you wish, and for as long as you wish, for we enjoy this, the greatest of pleasures, all the more when we are absent from one another. For the presence of friends makes us fastidious, and because we can at any time talk or sit together, When once we have parted, we give not a thought to those whom we have just beheld. And we ought to bear the absence of friends cheerfully, just because everyone is bound to be often absent from our lives, even when they are present. Include among such cases, in the first place, the nights spent apart, then the divergent engagements from which the two friends have, that the private studies for each, and their excursions into the country, and you will see that foreign travel does not rob us of much. A friend should be retained in the spirit. Such a friend can never be absent. He can see every day whomsoever he desires to see. I would therefore have you share your studies with me, your meals and your walks. We should be living within too narrow limits if anything were barred to our thoughts. I see you, my dear Lucilius, at this very moment. I hear you. I am with you to such an extent that I hesitate whether I should begin to write you notes instead of letters. Farewell. We see here from this passage Seneca's very close to Lucilius, that he talks about the greatness and the grandeur of pleasures that friends give us, and how these are all gifts, and not that any of our absences diminish these gifts, that these gifts are very nice to have and to hold. And at the very end, you see his kind of his outpouring, like that there shouldn't be any limits on the thoughts that we share with each other, and that I'm with you and I hear you, and that I'm moving from this idea from just writing letters to writing you notes of encouragement, more in that friendly matter than in the kind of formal letters that we have been seeing from their engagement so far in this compendiums of letters. But as all things do, like this podcast, friends come to an end, and this is where we have to deal with what one should do with the loss of a friend. It is right to cherish one's friends, as we just saw with Seneca's outpouring of love for Lucilius, but we are all mortal, and when our friends die, it will sting. But Seneca says that we may weep, but we must not wail. He's a little bit more pragmatic than Epictetus, who was like, kiss your child and say, one day you will die, in order to make sure that you're not feeling the bad. But he's a little bit more pragmatic, and says, like, yes, it is kind of natural for us to grieve, but make it short. There's no reason to extend this. He finds the mean. And regardless, the memories of your friend are still as sweet. Do not let it become embittered by the loss in and of itself. The end is just but a small portion of one's life and one's relationship to their friends. And we all must amor fati, that we must love fate. We will all die. As was said by Socrates, as well as the Stoics, that death is not a bad in and of itself. All men and women and living things die. And all the bad people die, and all the good people die. And if something happens to all of us, regardless, it is not a bad in and of itself. That was it so bad before we came into existence? No, it was not. We have no experience of it, and thus we fade back into that which is not. But we have to be grateful for all those times that you had with your friends. They do not dissolve into the ether. They are still with you. And we know that there is no guaranteed future. We know we should prioritize the time we have with our friends here and now, just because we know that they will die. They will end. our friendship will end, and it is good to prioritize and spend as much time with our friends as we can, whenever we can. Now, go out and make some good friends. Love them, spend time with them, and let go with equanimity as all things in their due time pass. Thank you, and fate willing, we'll speak again. Thanks once again to Steve Carafit, the patron of this podcast, as well as pretty good all-around guy. If you liked what you heard today, then you can find more of my work at the Wisdom for Life podcast, in which I co-host with Dr. Greg Sadler. It's bi-weekly, and we go into issues of practical philosophy and how it can be used to benefit your everyday life. May you be well, fate willing, of course.